Hello students, we are going to start chapter 3, Deep Water. It is written by William O. Douglas. Douglas was a leading advocate of individual rights. He was a judge at Supreme Court of USA. He retired in 1975 with a term lasting 36 years and remains the longest serving justice in the history of court. The following excerpt is taken from Of Men and Mountains by William O. Douglas. William Douglas recalls a misadventure of childhood in the first paragraph. It had happened when he was 10 or 11 years old. He had decided to learn to swim. There was a pool at YMCA in Yakima, which was safe. It was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end and 9 feet deep at the other. The drop was gradual. He got a pair of water wings and went to the pool. He hated to walk naked into water and show his very thin legs. The author had developed an aversion to the water when he was 3 or 4. His father had taken him to the beach in California. They stood together on the surf. The waves knocked him down and swept over him. He was buried under water. He was breathless. He was frightened. His father laughed, but the overpowering force of waves quelled terror in the young author's heart. Unpleasant memories were revived when he went to YMCA pool for the first time. Childish fears were stirred, but soon he gathered confidence. He watched other boys paddling on the water with their water wings. He tried to learn by imitating them. He did this for 2 or 3 times on different days. He was just beginning to feel comfortable in the water when the misadventure happened. When he went to the pool, there was no one else. So he sat on the side of pool to wait for others. Shortly afterwards, a big boy, a boxer, came. He was probably 18 years old and had beautiful muscles on his legs and arms. He called author skinny and asked how he would like to be plunged in water. The boxer boy picked Douglas and threw him into the water. He struck water in a sitting position. He swallowed water and at once went to bottom. He was frightened but did not lose his wits. He made a plan. He would make a big jump when his feet hit the bottom. He would come to the surface like a cork, lie flat on it, and then paddle to the edge of pool. Those 9 feet appeared more than 90. Before he touched the bottom, his lungs were already burst. When his feet hit bottom, he made a great jump upwards, but he failed to reach the surface at once. He came up slowly. His eyes, his nose came out of water, but not his mouth. He moved around his legs on the surface of water. He swallowed water and choked. He tried to bring his legs up, but they hung as dead weights. He again went down to the bottom of pool. He was shrieking underwater because terror had seized him. He was paralyzed underwater, but his heart and pounding in heart told him that he was still alive. When he hit the bottom, he jumped with his full might. The jump made no difference. The water was still around him. His arms and legs wouldn't move. He trembled with fear. He tried to call for help, to call mother, but nothing happened. Then he rose up. His eyes and nose were almost out of water. He sucked for air and got water. He started going down a third time. Then all efforts ended and he relaxed. A blackness swept over his brain and wiped out terror. There was no more panic. He felt drowsy and wanted to sleep. He gave up all attempts. He forgot everything. When he came to his senses, he found himself lying on the stomach beside the pool vomiting. The boy wouldn't have thrown him in, said, "I was only fooling." Someone said that the kid had nearly died. Then they took him to the locker room. He walked home after several hours. He was weak and trembling. He shook and cried when he lay on his bed. He couldn't eat that night. For days, a haunting fear was in his heart. He never went back to the pool. He feared water and avoided it whenever he could. He used every method he knew to overcome his fear. Finally, he decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. He went to a pool, practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. The instructor put a belt around him. A rope attached to the belt went through a pulley on the overhead cable. He held on to the end of the rope. They went on this way for many weeks. On each trip across the pool, a bit panic seized him. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold for the rope and Arthur went underwater. Some of the old terror returned and his leg froze. It was 3 months before the tension began to slack. Then the instructor taught him to put his face underwater and exhale, and to raise his nose and inhale. He repeated the exercise hundreds of times. Very slowly, he shed some of the old panic as his head went underwater. Then the instructor held him at the side of pool and had him kick with his leg. He did so for weeks. Gradually his legs relaxed. Thus, piece by piece, he built a swimmer. When he had perfected each piece, he put them together into an intricate whole. He had started practicing in October and in April. The trainer told him that he could swim. He asked the author to dive off and swim the length of the pool. He began to crawl and stroke. When he swam alone in the pool, tiny remnants of old terror would return. But now he could rebuke his terror. This went on till July. He was still not satisfied. So he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire. There he dived off a dock at Triggs Island. He swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. He swam the crawl, breaststroke, side stroke and backstroke. The terror returned once when he was in the middle of the lake, but he put his face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. He asked terror what it could do to him, and it fled away. Some doubts still remained, so he went up to Titan to Cornard Meadows, up the Cornard Trail to Meade Glacier. He camped in high meadows by side of Warm Lake. Next morning, he dived into lake and swam across the other shore and back. He shouted with joy, and Gilbert Peak returned the echo. He had conquered his fear of water. The experience had a deeper meaning for him. Only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate it. In death, there is a peace. There is a terror only in the fear of death. Roosevelt knew. He said, all we have to fear is fear itself. Douglas had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce. The will to live somehow grew in intensity. At least, Douglas felt liberated. He was free to walk the trail and climb the peaks and to ignore fear. That's all for chapter 3, Deep Water. I just hope you have understood the text very well.